All right, you guys. Well, as promised for the last couple of weeks, here we are, December the 20th, and you might be watching this after this Wednesday, the December the 20th. But here is the 2024 forecast. I'm excited to bring it to you. Now, again, only God knows the future, okay? Only God knows the future. And I want to preface it by that because, even the Fannie Mae, they every month are having a housing and economic forecast. Well, back in April actually of 2023, they predicted by the end of the year that the rates would be down to 5.7. So they're about a percent off. We're about 6.7 right now. So you can see that, right? And then later on, they predicted, now it'll be up at 7.7. But in actuality, we're not at 7.7. We're about 6.7. Okay, so they kind of were a point off under and over. So it just shows you that everybody can give you their opinion. Even here, I'm going to give you my opinion. I've done my research. I actually follow a guy very closely. He's a chief economist here in Orange County. He watches all the different counties in Southern California very closely. He's a quantitative economic and decision science. That's his degree, his background. But he is a chief local economist. So I follow him very closely and love all the stuff that he has to offer. And a lot of the stuff that I'm going to share with you comes from him. I've done other research also, but I think there's a lot of good information to share with you. So we're going to talk about the economy a little bit, and then we'll get into the forecast of what 2024 most likely will look like, because we're looking back even to the Great Recession in 2008. We'll look, seeing COVID, what happened in COVID, and then the last couple years, and even the last year, right? The Feds, I think it was around June of 2022, really put the brakes on, right? And the mortgage rates just skyrocketed. They weren't this high when they got up to 8% for about over 20 years. So we haven't seen mortgage rates that high. So when we talk about rates, that has a big factor on housing and on demand. Just for example, going from 8%, that was kind of the peak, right? We peaked that several months ago to what it is right now, about 6.6. That difference is about $100,000 difference of affordability. So if you could afford a $560,000 home, now you can afford a $660,000 home with the same payment. So you can see how mortgage rates make a huge difference. Well, Jerome Powell, right, with the Feds, he inflicted pain, and they were back in September. They were very hawkish and came out swinging. But in December, they became more dovish and realized they have hit a peak. And so even they are preparing, for what the future looks like, because they want they want inflation. Inflation is a big factor here. They want it to be around 2%. Okay, so we're a little over 3% now, but we're down. So we're heading in the right direction. And I think even they're seeing that. And so now they're kind of cooling off a little bit, right? They're cooling off a little bit. So now remember, though, that they have control of short-term rates like the credit card debt, car loans, and equity lines of credit. It's not directly tied to the 30-year mortgage, okay? It's indirectly. So the 30-year loans are more tied to mortgage-backed securities and are traded on Wall Street, right? So when mortgage rates want to be where everyone feels where the short-term rates would be down the road, they are kind of foretelling where the Feds are going to go, okay? So it doesn't go hand in hand, but with the consumer price index, with the inflation, going down, and Feds know this, they are starting to reduce the Fed funds next year, right? Next year. So the consensus is, right, that we were supposed to have a recession. Well, we didn't really have that said recession, okay? We didn't have it. And why? Well, the GDP is about 70% consumption by us. So that's why the recession never really happened. But, we can't really keep consuming at this rate, right, continually. And, that could be a problem. I mean, we even start seeing that we're starting to see some issues like with credit cards and people starting to max out their credit cards and things like that. Now the jobs, feds are focusing on this, okay? Job openings are coming down nicely. And right now it's about a 3.7 unemployment rate, okay? So, the United States, we're very resilient, and, we're kind of churning things around here, and we'll see how it goes into 2024. But, looking at the housing in particular, the number of closed sales for homes have been at an anemic level, you guys, this last year. Because, if you had that amazing mortgage rate at 2 or 3%, are you going to want to trade it in for an 8%? Just because there's a lot of pent up demand right now, you're not going to trade a 2 or 3% or even a 4 or maybe a 5% for that 8%. Okay, so now we're down in the 6s again, which is really good. So that's why it's been so anemic, because people are just sitting on their nice payment, which makes sense. But what's going to make things start flowing again? Well, the mortgage rates have to start dropping, and people go from 3 or maybe 4% and go, oh, okay, now it's a 5 or 6%. I can handle the difference because I really need to move and I really want to move into this next house. Or the demand goes up also for first-time buyers. Like, I'm ready to buy, I can afford this payment, and it's time to purchase. Okay, so that example of just like 8% mortgage rates when it peaked at the 8%, that was about 5 million potential borrowers could no longer afford a home because the rate went up to 8%. Then it dropped to 7%, and guess what? Now 5 more million people can afford that home. And now that it's down in the 6s, even more people can afford the home. So the U.S. Treasury is tied to the 30-year mortgage rate, and that's around 3.9% right now, and it was up at 5% at one point. And so the mortgage rates actually follow the 10-year Treasury, okay? So as you see the 10-year Treasury go, so you see the mortgage rates. So, what are we looking at, for the future here? As I mentioned, credit cards and consumers are, they're starting to skyrocket. People are putting a lot more on their credit cards now. But there's always a lag in everything, even with the Federal Reserve jacking up the mortgage rates. There's always a lag. And so, people are going, oh, is a recession going to happen? Is a recession going to happen? Well, for a recession to happen, you have to have 6 months of negativity for that to happen. And so we're not even there. We're not there, you guys. So I don't see that recession happening right now, anytime soon. Will it happen in the future? We'll see, right? We'll see what happens. Okay. Right now, I think for the economy to reset, we are going to, need to see probably 5 to 6% mortgage rates for the housing to really start picking up. And now that we're in the 6s, we will start seeing things beginning to pick up within the housing market. And so, right now, about 40% of homeowners own their house free and clear. That's the highest it's ever been, you guys. So that's awesome and very cool. I mean, collectively for all these homeowners, they have strong credit, great jobs, low fixed payments, and record tappable equity. I mean, the last few years, typically we go up 5 to 7%. It's probably 15 to 20% the last several years. Okay. We're kind of toning down a little bit on that now, but homeowners have a lot of equity, yes. And so, housing shortage is the big issue for us right now. Right now is the big housing issue. And right now in Orange County, probably about 2,400 homes on the market. All of SoCal, 21,834 homes were active. Last year, it was around 27,479. I'm sorry, that was since December this year. So we dropped about 700 homes. So that's not last year. That was actually this year, and we dropped about 700 homes already from December 7th until now. There is that normal, typical holiday drop. Nobody typically wants to put their house on the market, which although I think it's a great time because you got Christmas trees, you got wonderful decorations around, and it's a very inviting to have people come in and see your home and go, wow, I could see myself here, celebrating the holidays. So as I mentioned before, California, homeowners right now have a mortgage rate, 85% of them have a mortgage rate below 5%, 69% of them have a mortgage rate below 4%, and this might be you, and 30% have a 3% or lower mortgage rate. So incredible mortgage rates, right? You're gonna hold on to those as long as possible. But really what it comes down to is affordability and whether the home still fits you or whether you need to move on to the next home, right? So, people are kind of sitting on the sidelines. As I mentioned, there's kind of a pent up demand. A lot of my clients right now are talking to me going, I want to move. I maybe adopted some children, or maybe, my family is growing, we're having children, or maybe we need to downsize. And it's just that time. But I have a great payment, so they're starting to talk with me. Things I can tell are on the pent up demand side. But now that we're starting to see the mortgage rates drop, and if we get to the low sixes or even to the fives, we're going to see a lot more people putting their house on the market, and we're going to see a lot more demand, even first-time buyers coming into the market. Okay, so because that affordability is going to be more attainable, right, for many of us. Okay, so right now, homes in escrow, we have around 8,000, or a little over 8,000 homes in Southern California. Okay. 8,083, I think it was. Beginning of December, the 7th, it was around 8,000. And a year ago, it was 8,200. Okay, so demand will actually rise this year in December because of the rates, because of the mortgage rates dropping like they have. Even though typically in December it declines a lot. So will this be a snowball effect heading into the prime selling season of spring? I think so. Excuse me. And I'll give you a couple projections at the end of where I think we might be headed. And it's kind of like fishing though. You're putting your pole in there and you're seeing when the fish are going to bite. Is it going to be at the beginning of spring? Is it going to be in summer? Or is it going to be in fall? When are these things going to happen? So I can't tell you for sure because I'm not God and I don't know, but I do see some writings on the wall, so to speak, right? And we can tell that some things are beginning to move. So there might be that snowball effect that continues into January and February. So right now, the expected market time is around 81 days in Southern California. Orange County, it's at 59 days. And that's out of all the counties. I mean, LA County's 92, Riverside's 92, and San Bernardino's 100 days. So Orange County is just things are moving a lot faster than any other county. And of course, our median house price for Orange County is around 1.2 million now. So a lot of people want to live in Orange County. At one point it was becoming more of a balanced market where buyers were, having more say. Even sellers were beginning to buy down some of their points, some of their, for like a buy down, maybe a 2-1 buy down. Now that the rates are down and there's more demand, we'll see if that continues to happen. I think there's going to be more interest on people's homes than just maybe 2 or 3. Maybe it's going to go up to 4 or 5 offers. So we'll see what happens. So now, what is that shortage, the housing shortage solution? The mortgage rates, in my opinion, have to come down to in the 6s where they are, and even low 6s, and then into the 5s. And then we'll start seeing a lot more pace of this market picking up, okay? Let's see, what else do I want to say? What else do I want to tell you? I'm looking at a little bit of my notes here. Some people go, oh, it's an election year coming up. Will that affect the housing? I don't think so. I don't think there's any data out there that actually really says and tells you that an election year will change things. But the change of different government administrators and policies that they might put in place could change things, right? Could change things. So, some 2024 concerns. Let's get with the concerns before I project that what possibly most likely will happen for 2024. Uncertainty in the market still. Yeah, there's some of that. There's definitely still some of that. Sticky inflation. I think that it's getting in, and I don't think it's sticky anymore, in my personal opinion. I think that even the Feds realize that, and so they're starting to change their tone. So I think we're starting to see the shift. The rates will still remain higher than, of course, what we saw at 2, 3, 4%. Will we ever see 2 or 3% again? I don't think so. 4 or 5%? Yeah, I think there's a good chance. Okay, a good chance. Another concern maybe is the Feds overshoot and maybe they cause a recession. That could happen. The labor market, maybe it remains hot. Global turmoil. I mean, we're already seeing that with Israel and a lot of other things. And then Washington D.C.'s decisions. We don't have control of those, right? Any policies that they put in place, things like that. Okay. So the forecast here. Okay. So inventory, it'll start off low around 18,000 homes, which is about 21% lower than a year ago. So that's right where we're going to be. We're going to start off about 21% lower than we were a year ago. Okay, the luxury market is beginning to become sluggish again, which is typical, right? It takes longer for those luxury homes, which are the 10% of the market, to sell, right? It takes longer for those homes to sell. So here's 3 scenarios for you, looking at the spring, summer, or the fall season. If it happens in the spring, with the economy kind of cooling down, the rates dropping to 6.5%, we'll have a rise in inventory, about 20,000 homes. Demand picks up and the rates are dropping. We will probably have some bidding wars starting in the spring, closed sales will be up 15 to 20%. Okay. So I personally think that's what's going to happen, as I see things drastically changing right now. I think everything's going to start happening January, February, especially March, May. May is the prime month for the most transactions and the most homes that sell. That's May is when it happens. Okay, and also if it happens in the spring, home values will rise 3 to 6%. Okay, so we're kind of getting back to the norm of home values rising. Not like they have been the last couple of years drastically. If it happens in the summer, we're still at the 6.5% rate. Rise in inventory would be about 22,500. And then things will pick up during the summer drastically, right? Closed sales will be up 10 to 15%. Home values rise maybe 0 to 3%. And then if it happens in the fall, which I think there's only like a 10% chance that will happen, inventory will rise to 26,000 homes, and then rates will be about 6%. Closed sales 8 to 11%.